My colleague here is a second Dan in karate.
And I'm a black belt in origami.
Only Fools and Horses is a true national treasure. Since its debut in 1981, the story has brought some of the most iconic TV moments ever filmed in Britain. But behind the jokes and dodgy deals lie bizarre stories and behind the scenes secrets. Here are 15 weird and wonderful facts about Only Fools and Horses you won't see coming. So grab a seat at the Nag's Head, because this lot have some tales to tell. Before Only Fools and Horses became a household phrase, the series nearly launched under very different titles. John Sullivan originally floated Reddies, Cockney slang for cash, and even considered calling the pilot Big Brother. It wasn't until he remembered a phrase his father often said, "Only fools and horses work," that the perfect title clicked. The saying captured Del Boy's philosophy that questioned why anyone would slog away at a 9 to 5 when they could make a fortune through clever deals. That one choice gave the show its identity. Imagine tuning in every week to Reddies. It just doesn't scream comedy gold, does it? Fans associate the Trotters Tower block with Peckham in South London, but none of the exterior shots were filmed there. The original flats used for Nelson Mandela House were actually White Mead House in Bristol, later replaced with Harlech Tower in Acton. This trick of geography fooled many viewers for years. Even today, tourists head to Peckham in search of Nelson Mandela House, only to learn that the famous high-rise never stood there. Somehow, Bristol locals ended up living in the most photographed ordinary block of flats in Britain. Bristol locals, meanwhile, are used to fans turning up to snap photos of an ordinary block of flats that once doubled as TV's most famous council estate. And if the home wasn't really in Peckham, what about the pub? The Nag's Head, the pub where Del and Rodney schemed and sulked, is as iconic as the Trotters' flat. But the filming location changed several times. Early episodes used a real pub in Peckham, while later scenes were shot in West London and on studio sets. Viewers watching reruns often spot decor that mysteriously shifts from one episode to the next. They have noticed different wallpaper, different bar layouts. One week you're having a pint under a dartboard, next week it's vanished. Still, the spirit of the Nag's Head never changed. It remained the heart of the Trotters' social life, where friendships were tested and fights broke out. One of the most famous moments in TV history is Del leaning on the bar flap and falling flat on the floor. And it wasn't even heavily rehearsed. David Jason suggested that the waiter walk away just before the fall to set up the gag, which made it look like Del was trying to look suave before disaster struck. The result was perfection. Jason's timing, the look of disbelief on Trigger's face, and the suddenness of the fall turned it into pure slapstick gold. Proof that sometimes all you need for comedy greatness is a bar, a flap, and zero dignity. The scene went on to win awards and is still ranked as one of the greatest comedy moments of all time. And it all happened because of a quick idea on set. In a touch of glass, Del and Rodney accidentally smash an antique chandelier. The catch is that the crew only had one real chandelier. Breaking it meant there was no going back. The team rehearsed for days with a fake prop, carefully perfecting the timing so the chandelier would fall at just the right moment. When filming began, everyone held their breath. The crash went perfectly, and the actors' stunned reactions were genuine. Imagine being the poor prop guy if that take had gone wrong. Sorry lads, IKEA's closed. That single take became television history. The fear of messing it up only added to the tension of the scene. Casting Rodney was trickier than you'd think. Several actors auditioned, but John Sullivan wanted someone who could play both awkward and endearing. Nicholas Lyndhurst wasn't immediately sold on the role, because he was already well known from Butterflies and feared being typecast. But once paired with David Jason, the chemistry was undeniable. Rodney's awkward charm made him perfect. Plus, who else could pull off that many disastrous haircuts? Rodney's lanky frame, hopeless love life, and constant frustration with Del made him the perfect foil. The Trotters wouldn't have been the same without Lyndhurst's balance of comedy and pathos. Trigger, the slow-witted but lovable road sweeper, isn't really called Trigger. His actual name in the show is Colin Ball, though almost no one uses it. The nickname came from his reputation for being slow on the uptake, and it's a sly joke about having a quick trigger. Ironically, Trigger ended up being the most reliable man in Peckham. Just don't ask him to explain why. Actor Roger Lloyd Pack played him with such sincerity that the character transcended the gag. Trigger's misplaced loyalty and accidental wisdom made him one of the show's most beloved side characters. Fans still debate whether he was truly dim or quietly the most philosophical man in Peckham. When actor Buster Merrifield joined the cast as Uncle Albert after the death of Leonard Pierce, Grandad, many viewers assumed he'd been a career performer. In truth, Merrifield had been a bank manager who only acted in amateur theatre. His authentic Cockney accent and real-life military service during World War II made him perfect for the part. His constant "during the war" stories were a running joke, but his warmth and credibility grounded the show. The cast and crew often joked that Uncle Albert had simply walked in off the street. One minute, he's approving loan applications. The next, he's sinking German battleships. Now that's a CV update. Lovely Jubbly, You Plonker, and This Time Next Year We'll Be Millionaires weren't invented out of thin air.
What a plonker.
You Plonker was already a common London insult. John Sullivan wove these common phrases into Del's speech to give him authenticity, and David Jason's delivery turned them into national catchphrases. The influence was so strong that Lovely Jubbly was added to the Oxford English Dictionary in 1993. Not bad for a line Del Boy used to celebrate dodgy deals. And really, how many sitcoms can say they changed the dictionary? Lovely Jubbly went from orange drink to Oxford English in record time. At one point, Sullivan considered wrapping up the series after just 5 years. Good thing he didn't. Otherwise, we'd all still be quoting Butterflies. He feared the concept might run out of steam, but the Christmas specials proved too popular to ignore. They regularly drew audiences of over 20 million, cementing Only Fools and Horses as appointment television. Instead of ending, the show evolved. Specials tackled weddings and unexpected riches, giving the Trotters' story new layers. Far from fizzling out, the show became even more of a national obsession. In the 1996 Christmas special, Del and Rodney dress as Batman and Robin, only to end up running through the streets. The sight of two men in superhero costumes caused real confusion in London. Pedestrians stopped and stared, and one person even called the police, convinced it was a prank gone wrong. Imagine explaining that 999 call. Yes, officer, Batman and Robin just legged it past me in Peckham. The chaos of the scene only made it more legendary. The image of Del and Rodney, capes flapping as they sprinted into the night, became one of the show's most enduring visuals. When Del and Rodney discovered a priceless pocket watch in their garage in 1996, it was the ultimate payoff. After years of failed schemes, they finally struck it rich. The finale drew over 24 million viewers, one of the highest ratings in British TV history. That finale had the whole country glued to the telly just to watch two blokes rummaging around in a garage. For many fans, this was the perfect ending. The Trotters had finally achieved their dream. Debate continues about whether later specials, which saw the brothers lose their fortune, spoiled the magic. But that Christmas episode remains a high point not just for the show, but for all of British comedy. The Trotters' yellow three-wheeled van is almost as famous as the characters themselves, like the Reliant Regal supervan. It's the only car in history mocked on the road and celebrated in an exhibition at the same time. The vehicle became a symbol of Dell's dodgy empire, so recognisable that real owners of Reliance often faced teasing. The van used in filming is now preserved in a museum, treated with the same reverence as a vintage Aston Martin, proof that even a clapped-out motor can become iconic with the right owners. It might sound strange, but even Beckham couldn't dribble his way out of this Trotter deal. In 2014, Only Fools and Horses returned for a special sketch to support Sport Relief. Del Boy and Rodney were trying to pitch a dodgy line of underpants, and Beckham played himself, getting roped into their latest idea. Fans were initially skeptical, but surprisingly, he nailed it. Beckham delivered his lines with charm, and critics praised the sketch for capturing the spirit of the original show. It wasn't just a throwaway charity skit. For many fans, it proved the enduring popularity of Only Fools and Horses. Decades after its debut, it could still draw in the biggest stars in the country and make them part of its world. Only Fools and Horses might be the most British of sitcoms, but its appeal stretched far beyond the UK. The show aired in countries like New Zealand, Canada and Ireland, and quickly found devoted audiences. Dubbed versions of Del and Rodney's escapades were so popular that local catchphrases emerged directly from their translated lines. Turns out, dodgy deals translate well in every language. The humour, it seems, is universal. Whether you grew up in Peckham or Prague, everyone can relate to the underdog story of two brothers forever convinced that this time next year we'll be millionaires. That mixture of resilience and laughter is why it remains beloved across the world. Only Fools and Horses gave us a world that felt alive. It was filled with warmth and ambition. Decades later, the Trotters are still part of British life, and their stories continue to win fans around the globe. If you enjoyed these weird facts, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next deep dive into classic TV. Lovely jubbly.